Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and today on E3 they showed off a Anthem trailer and also an Anthem gameplay demo. It showed about 4 minutes of gameplay, and I wanted to kind of break down both of them. The trailer, there wasn't much in, like you can't get much from it, so I have a bunch of bullet points here, but with the gameplay demo, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into it and kind of like picking out some things that you may have missed. So in this video, I'm going to be making a lot of sort of harsh comparisons, some that people may find unfair, but that's simply because I kind of expect more from these AAA developers, having, played and worked with like free-to-play developers for so long, right? So I just kind of expect more from AAA developers and bigger publishers. So like I said, I'm going to be making comparisons that in some people's opinions may seem a little bit too harsh or unfair, which is fine. We can all have our own opinions. And I'm also going to be, of course, talking about the monetization of the game and stuff like that, and just what I expect from it in general as a player coming from a free-to-play game, which has heaps of content in it, to a AAA game which is going to most likely charge me money for every single expansion that they release, although there has been some information in regards to how they're going to release content, which I'll also talk about here, but they're at least going to charge me, $60, £50 up front, right? And that's something that we kind of have to keep in mind going into this whenever there are games out there which can provide you much more for much less, right? So I have a few bullet points for the trailer, which we're going to go through. So the first one is the world looks insane. Just like you would expect from the last trailer that they showed, there's literally no difference. The world still looks great, the graphics look awesome, and if nothing else grabs your attention, then the graphics of the game definitely will. That was one big positive that I really liked about it whenever I first set eyes on it. Like, it looked really, really good compared to all the other games that are currently on the market. This game's quality looks awesome. Now, the downside to that is if someone wants to pick it up who has, let's say, a worse PC, like, for example, someone from my community who picked up Warframe because it was free to play and was very well optimized, that might be a bad thing for them, because a lot of like destruction and shadow effects can really hit the performance of your PC. So that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about picking up this game. Can your PC actually run it? Will it be super optimized for those lower end PCs? Will it have things like render scaling where you can actually like tone down sort of the fidelity of all the pixels on your screen to make it run a little bit smoother? Those are questions that you have to ask. Also, what are the options going to be like as well? So that was kind of that. That's the only thing that really comes to mind whenever I think about sort of the environment and how it looks. The next bullet point that I have down is that the enemies kind of give me a Fallen vibe. So the enemies from Destiny, the ones that can kind of crawl around, they're kind of like insect-like, they're dirty, and they're just kind of like abused and worn. That is what the enemies kind of felt like to me. Like, that's where the inspiration I feel came from. So I don't know, maybe there's absolutely no link at all, but that's what they definitely reminded me of, okay? So the Anthem is the tower, or maybe it's the cult of people, right? So they referred to the Anthem being the only safe place for humans. So the Anthem could be the tower that the humans live in, or it could be just the cult of people that are still alive or together or are surviving in this world, right? And from this cult of people, you are playing as a freelancer. So your suit isn't the freelancer. Your suit is a javelin, and there's 4 different javelins, all with unique different abilities. So the first one that caught my attention was Storm. This one is kind of like a mage character. The second one was the Interceptor. This is a super fast character, so a speedy boy. Then we have the Ranger, which is your balanced character, and then we have the Colossus, which is your tank character. Now, in the gameplay that they showed, they demonstrated different abilities on all the different characters. So one Colossus had a flamethrower, the other had like this sort of like missile thing that he shot from his back, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it. So there are big beasts for enemies as well, as you can probably see from the trailer, which you're watching. Those big beasts are world events, which, we'll talk a little bit more whenever we get to that as well, but it's awesome to know that there's going to be a little bit of like enemy diversity there, and you're not just fighting this new faction of enemies, which again, we'll talk a little bit more about whenever we get into the gameplay. So, which we're going to get into now, by the way. So it opens up with a big 4-legged dinosaur mech thing that the guy who creates the javelins is actually in, and you're tasked with a mission to go and find what is allowing the enemies to create these poison grenades, right? So once you do that, you spawn on top of this big ass dinosaur mech thing, and you're gonna see that there's 2 Colossus javelins, there's 1 Ranger javelin, and there is 1 Storm javelin. So from that point, you just get to fly off and do your mission. And then once you get into the sort of first cave, you're going to be introduced to these enemies called Scars. And the little announcer guy that was talking whenever I was watching the trailer for myself said that they were hostile invaders with a mysterious connection to the Shapers. Now, I have no idea what the Shapers are. It's going to be cool to see what they actually are. But, you know, we're just going to have to wait and see. So once you finish your engagement with the Shapers, you kind of fly off and you just continue towards your objective, and you're going to come across this big ass Titan thing. So this is known as a world event that you can encounter while exploring, such as finding an Ash Titan, which the character's going to shoot at and deem that it's too powerful, and then fly past it, right? So kind of like Destiny's public events, I guess, maybe. Who knows? Maybe inspiration came from there, but it's whatever, you know? So next up, the players come across an enemy stronghold where the abilities are demonstrated on how they can be comboed together. In the gameplay, the players are using 1 Ranger, 2 Colossus, and 1 Storm, like I already mentioned. From what I can see, all javelins have 3 abilities, 2 small abilities, and an ultimate. The first ultimate that we get to see is from the Red Colossus, which where he uses his shield to get through the mines in the cave. So you'll notice in the gameplay that there is a Red Colossus and also a White Colossus, and whenever all the players enter into this cave, they're going to use the Colossus's shield to get past all the mines that are laying on the ground. And you'll notice that whenever the Colossus runs into a mine, it actually takes away from this sort of bar, his ultimate bar that he has for a shield. So it's like the shield's health is your ultimate bar, and you're probably going to have to find a way to either repair that or wait for it to cool down. Okay, so the next ability that we get to see is the Cryonade coming from the Ranger. This is then combined with the Colossus multi-mortar to deal combo damage to all of the affected enemies, which I thought was pretty cool because it also shown combo damage numbers, right? So that's a big thing to take away from this as well, is there's damage numbers in the game too, which in my opinion is pretty cool, right? There's a flamethrower on one of the Colossus. There's a flamethrower on one of the Colossus javelins, and there's also melee abilities that you can activate by pressing Y. You see a little bit while you're playing as the Storm guy that you get common weapons and common sigils as a drop. The abilities on the Storm aren't too apparent. His pistol's dealing very low damage. It seems like the javelins only have 2 weapons each, but they all have different weapons. You can also see on the Ranger that there is a weapon that has, like, I think that looks like kind of a cosmetic skin that you have to buy, maybe just because it's ugly, and usually the skins that are ugly are the ones behind the paywall because, I don't know, for some reason developers like selling ugly skins for whatever reason, but overall, you know, the gameplay demo was pretty cool. The flying effects on Storm are awesome, and it kind of just wraps up with you guys finding like this massive spider boss, and it just kind of fades to blank, right? And that's the trailer over. So let me know what you guys think of the trailer in general in the comment section below. Now we're just going to talk kind of a little bit about it. So as far as I know, on release, there's only going to be 4 javelins, right? The Ranger, Storm, Colossus, and the Interceptor, and that's going to be it, which in my opinion is pretty disappointing. However, I did watch another variation, more like an interview that was posted on, it was either IGN or GameSpot, which I'll have linked in the description below, where they said there's going to be multiple javelins. So maybe as the game progresses, there's going to be more javelins. If there's not, I'm going to be pretty upset, but if there is, awesome, great. I'm all for unlocking javelins just by playing, and if there is, I'm going to be excited to play it and obviously unlock more of them. If not, I'm going to be upset, simply because there's other games out there which give you a lot more class variation as soon as they come out, right? Even Warframe had, you know, more classes than just 4 as soon as it came out, and that's what I mean by like unfair comparisons, right? Because Warframe, whenever it first came out, was obviously a game that didn't have as much effort put into it as Anthem, but they were also a lot smaller studio with a, you know, really small budget, where BioWare and EA are loaded, right? They have a lot of money. Of course, it's important for them to still make a return on investment. However, like, I still think that if there's not a lot of content in the game, it's gonna let it down big time. Now, that also leads into my thought about progression as well, right? So there has to be some form of progression. Whenever I'm playing Anthem, I want to be able to play every single javelin and have like my own sort of progression for each javelin, right? So I have to maybe go and get resources to upgrade parts of my javelin from killing specific enemies or harvesting specific plants or whatever, because it doesn't really seem like there's a lot of resources around like Anthem, right? The city that you guys live in or whatever. It doesn't seem like there's a lot there, so maybe going out and collecting resources, gathering stuff to make yourself better might be a thing. I didn't see any XP bars of any sort. Like, nothing was there that indicated that you got more XP, just the resource collecting in the form of the sigil and the new weapon. I did notice that if you compare one javelin to the other, the Ranger had shields where the Colossuses did not have shields. They only have more health. The Ranger had less health, but it had shields, and you know, that was that. And that was kind of all I noticed. So every javelin has an ultimate. Every javelin has two abilities which can be swapped. So, for example, the Colossus has, his missiles, and it also has the flamethrower on the other Colossus that we see in the gameplay. What I don't want to see happen, and this is what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer, is that you had all these different characters, right? But most of them shared the same skill with maybe just a different variation, right? So in the actual trailer itself, you've seen that the Interceptor used the cryo grenade instead of the Ranger, right? So what I don't want to see is basically javelins that have the exact same abilities. I think that, maybe having the same abilities on a few javelins might be okay. Something as simple as the cryo grenade, that might be fine at the beginning, like your very minimalistic start of your progression, your skill tree, whatever they intend. But if it goes deeper into the game and all the javelins kind of have the same abilities, not gonna lie, I'm gonna be super let down, and that's gonna suck balls. Like, maybe one javelin might specialize in using, like, let's say the silos or the missiles or whatever, and they might deal more damage if you play that specific javelin. But I still want to see different variation between all the different javelins, and kind of like just something different for each of them. Make them specialize in something. Obviously, if you have your tanking, you have your balance, you have your mage-like, and you have your speed, but like, that'll mean nothing if all of the abilities are kind of the same, right? Because you can totally see the Ranger using a flamethrower as well, So that's kind of that. As for gameplay, there's nothing else we can really talk about other than it didn't really seem like the flying was on reels. I've seen a lot of people saying that from last year's trailer. It seemed like it was open world. Seems like you can fly around. The only thing I will say is that because of that whole flying mechanic, it might make the entire environment seem a little bit smaller than it actually is, because you have so many different ways of sort of traversing it. But again, in that interview that I watched between the sort of publisher or the news article outlet or whatever and the game developers themselves, they said that because you have so much like variation in how you can explore, it really adds to not only like the stuff that you can explore on land and in the air, but also like in the water and stuff like that. So maybe, at face value, it might not seem like a massive world, but you're just going to have a lot of different options to sort of explore it, right? So I guess that's a thing they keep in mind, but I don't know. Just to me, it seems like the worlds were kind of small, and it definitely will feel a lot more smaller and closed in, especially whenever people start to sort of speedrun through it to kind of get the end game and stuff like that, because they did say that this game will have an end game, and they did say that they want people to keep on playing it after their first initial playthrough. They said that the game's going to be constantly evolving and constantly changing, so like it's like this world conflict, right? You have the forces of nature acting against you, and you also have the enemy factions acting against you, and you have to, as a javelin or as a freelancer, kind of combat all of that, right? So to me, that was kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they keep players coming back to the game, because obviously they're going to have to offer up something in the form of rewards, because that's another big thing that you have to keep in mind. Like exotics or legendary weapons have to be super rewarding, unique, and there has to be a lot of them in the game at launch and not a lot behind DLCs. And speaking of DLCs, I'm of the understanding that this game is going to work similar to how Battlefield 5 is going to work. Like there's going to be no season pass, there's going to be very little monetization, but any monetization that there is all going to be cosmetics. There's no loot boxes, there's no pay for power or anything like that. It's all going to be cosmetic. And you know, like I said, like with Battlefield 5 or Battlefield V, they're releasing their story elements, like one different story element every single month, right? So hopefully Anthem kind of has a decent chunk of story to begin with, because whenever they were speaking about it, they did have like a heavy emphasis on story, and being like that is the main focus when you are in Anthem or the tower or whatever you want to call it. So that's where you interact and sort of develop the story. And then whenever you're out fighting and you're with your friends, that's whenever, you know, you just focus on the gameplay, right? The story doesn't really evolve too much, but you do have like this little like robot character, almost like the Ghost or Ortis, which talks to you as you're playing as well. So other than that, the gameplay looks very drop in, drop out, kind of Borderlands-ish, where you can just kind of like join anyone's mission. You can also like ping players in your area to say, hey, if you want to come help me with this mission, you can do that. It's not seamless joining in, so you can't just fly to a location and find another player. You actually actively have to, you know, join that player, so it's not seamless transitioning or anything like that. But it is very drop in, drop out, do the mission, leave, do your own thing, or you can stay with the guy that you're playing with, stuff like that. There's no mini map, and you can see the objectives in the top right hand corner of the screen as well. But other than that, you know, that seems to be just about it, really. I don't know, like, I'm expecting a lot from this game. I want a shit ton of progression, I want a shit ton of legendaries, I want a shit ton of cosmetics. There are pre-order stuff available now as well, which I'll have displayed on screen. I believe it's like an armor set and also like beta access too, I think it was. Yeah, so it's like different armor sets, VIP access to pre-launch demos, a founder player banner, a Ranger Javelin gear attachment, and an Anthem digital soundtrack, as well as like that cool armor that you have. And that's only for the base 4 exos. So if there is other exos in the game, we don't know if you're going to be able to equip this stuff. So I don't know, it sounds like an interesting game. The concept definitely has me sold. It's the forces of nature acting against you, and it's also the enemy factions and these gods who've kind of like abandoned the world that you live in, and then you're doing your best as like the human race to kind of, you know, fight against that and just survive and do your thing, right? So that's kind of it. Like, I have high hopes, high expectations for it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'll be pre-ordering it and posting content for it, and obviously like streaming it and stuff like that, so you guys can make your first impressions off it based off of that. So maybe you guys hold off on buying it, let me make the mistake with my money, because I mean, this is what I do for a job, just buying games to play them. So you know, it's totally down to you what you want to do, but I hope it's successful. I hope it's good. I hope it's great. I hope we can all have a fun time. And I think at the minute I'm buying it simply because it is gonna make it so that I can basically play as Iron Man. You know, like I can be Iron Man, and that's another thing. Customization. Apparently, you can customize your javelins as well. So not just gun skins, but javelin skins too, which is gonna be super cool. So yeah, other than that, guys, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button below. If you want to see more Anthem content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.